Hello, welcome to this video that is talking about styles and formatting of clients' boxes or shapes. In this video, we will go through different shape styles, we will take a look at most frequently used styles of headings and content boxes, and lastly, how to format boxes correctly. Now let's take a look at different shape styles. So first we have box that we call non-filled. You can't really see it because it really has no color filling and as well no outline. So this would be non-filled style. Then we have outline style. So it's a box that does not have any color fill, but it has outline. Outline can be, of course, different thickness and different formats. It can be dotted, dashed, or full line, as you can see in here. And then we have filled box. So the box is filled with some color. Color can differ, but this is filled style box. Now let's take a look on the boxes with the different shapes, kind of. So first, the box that now you can see, we would call like edgy or boxy style because it has these hard edges in the corners. So yeah, this we would refer to as a boxy, edgy style. Then we have something that we call organic or round style. This could look this way, or also, for example, when we are talking about headings, organic or round style heading could as well look this way. It's generally when we refer to some organic shapes, we refer to shapes that have round edges. Now let's talk about most frequently used styles of headings and content boxes. First, we have very clean style. So it's clean and non-filled style, as you can see. None of the boxes have any fill or any outline. Then we have alternative to this style, which is also very nice and clean, but it has underline under the heading. Another style could look this way. It would be filled heading box plus outlined content box. Another way would be both filled heading and also filled content box. And then we can have alteration of the style, which could be with the round heading box plus outline content box, or round filled heading and then filled content box. Of course, there is even more styles that clients can have described in their guidelines, but this captures most frequently used ones. But of course, always if there would be some different style than this outlined in the guidelines, you should follow that style. Now let's take a look at small guidelines example. So in here you can see example of the heading and the content box. So this, as you can already see, is different than what we saw before. So it means that if the example looks this way, we have to follow client guidelines and we really have to adopt this style into our work. So no matter what our personal preferences are, if this is client style, we have to follow it. Now we will continue to talk about how to format boxes or shapes correctly. So there are a few rules that you should always follow. Let's take a look at rule number 1. So always insert text directly into filled shape, not on top of it. Here we have correct example. As you can see, text is directly in the filled shape. There is no other content box. In here we have wrong example where there are two boxes because there is one filled box and then we have one non-filled box on the top. And this is very incorrect. We never do this. And the reason for this is that, first of all, then it's very hard to adjust the text box margins because even though you set them correctly maybe into this box, it does not have correct margins overall together with the filled box. What you could do is adjust the box exactly like this, but still then it's very messy. It's very hard to keep everything aligned because there is box on top of box, and when we have very full slide of shapes, it is just hard to work with. Therefore, please never use this style unless there is some really small exception. Sometimes when we use some circles or very specific shapes, it might be hard to fit in the text into such a shape, and then you can make a small exception, but it should be very rare. Now let's go to rule number 2. Your box should always be set into do not out of it and also wrap text in shape. We will now check this in the correct example. So we go to format shape, and here we can see that this box is set correctly. Do not out of it and wrap text in the shape. Now let's go to wrong example. So in here we have selected resize shape to fit text. Sometimes this is a default setting of the box, therefore you really have to go directly to this setting and change it. And here we can see this is set correctly, text is wrapped in the shape. And why this would be a problem, even though it looks the same as the other box, we will now take a look at that. So let's imagine that we send this presentation back to client, and client now sees the slide and it looks nice and aligned. But client needs to change some text, so he or she just types something. And since the setting was do not out of it, the shape readjusted because client was typing there something, and now everything is misaligned, the size of the box changed. So this is really frustrating for the client when something like this happens. Therefore, please always follow this rule and make your settings correct. Now, rule number 3. Set correct text box margins according to guidelines. Here we have small guideline examples, so we have something to follow. Of course, you always need to check your client's guidelines in the task you are currently working at. So we will imagine that this is how the box should be correctly set. And now we can see the correct example. So we go to text box margins, and yes, it really matches the parameters that are in here. Usually when we have a non-filled box, then actually we follow 0 all around all the sides, because then the text can be better aligned with the slide frame or with other shapes. But in filled boxes, you follow what the guidelines say. Now here we have wrong example. So as you can see, the sides are not matching. So this could happen if you just copy some random text box and you do not check your text box margins. So yeah, always make sure that you follow guidelines. In here, we have a non-filled shape, but as you can see, we kept these text box margins. It would be more correct if you really follow the 0 all around in non-filled style. Then we have rule number 4 that is connected to the previous rule, but this rule says that you should adjust text box margins in case you need to because of some icon or some other elements. So how to do this correctly would be, as you can see in this example, all the sides stay the same according to the guidelines, except one side, which is the left, where we place the icon. Icon should always be on the left side. So then we just adjust the left margin so we can fit nicely the icon. This is totally fine to do, and it is still following the rules. Just make sure that all other margins are set correctly. What would be wrong is, for example, this. It's adding another shape just to create space for the icon. This might cause some more misalignments because we need to make sure that all of this is aligned and so on. It creates, again, more chaos because we are adding more boxes into the slide. Therefore, please don't do this solution, but go to the correct one. And in here, we can see that text box margins are not correct, but also this shows only 0.3. So it is not text box margins that makes us this big gap, but the setting in here is in the indentation. So in here, designer would set indentation before just to make this big gap. And this is also something we do not prefer. We would like if you use indentation only in case of the bullet points, but for this kind of situation, just set the text box margins so you can fit the icon or some other element. Rule number 5. Always ensure alignment and consistency in line thickness and shape sizes. We will take a fast look in the presentation mode just so we see how the shapes look. And in here you can see that we have perfect alignment of the outline shape and heading. There is no misalignment, but in the wrong example, you can see here we have slightly misaligned both sides. And in here we can see small misalignment in the right side. And now we will go to investigate why that happened. So in this box, I will mark all of them, both of them, and we can see that the line has the same weight. So it is 1 point, and there is line both around the heading and this box. Because if we have outline in here, we need to put also outline on the heading, so the boxes perfectly match. If there is no outline on the heading, it would look like this first example in here. So you can see here we have no outline, and therefore we have this tiny misalignment. So always remember to use the same line thickness for both of the shapes. And now you can see, now our shape is perfectly aligned. Now let's take a look at this second wrong example, and let's try to see what went wrong here, because the shape looks pretty well like this. It's only in the presentation mode that we suddenly can see this tiny misalignment. So what happened? In here we can see we have line thickness 1 pt, and the same goes for this shape. So the line thickness is not issue. So let's check the sizes of the boxes. We go to shape format, and we can see this box is wide 15.11 centimeters. Now I click to the other one, and that one shows also that it's wide 15.11 centimeters. But what happens if I mark both of them? It does not show me the same number. If my boxes, I will click in here and in here, if they are both the same size, the number will show in here. So these boxes are matching the size. But even though this shows separately the same number, they are not the same size because PowerPoint shows us only hundreds of decimals. So some box can technically be just a slightly bigger or smaller, and it can be, for example, 15.113, but PowerPoint will not show this to us because of this limitation. Therefore, what we need to really make sure of is that we really type in the value, and this way we make sure that it's exactly 15.11. And now we make sure they are aligned. And now we can see in presentation mode that it is fixed this issue. Therefore, you really need to make sure that your boxes are exactly the same size. And now on to the last point, rule number 6. In case of round shapes, make sure all your round corners are the same roundness. So here we see again correct example. So all of my round edges are the same, also in here. And we usually manage this by copying one box, or if you are resizing the box, you really need to resize the edge and try to match it as much as possible to all others. And in here you can see wrong example. So this edge is a bit more edgier than this, and then this one is totally almost circular. So to have this in one slide or even throughout the slides would be considered inconsistent. Therefore, try to match the edges as much as possible and make them consistent as in this correct example. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope this video will help you to set your boxes correctly and choose the right style based on the client's guidelines.